Hi, I'm Dr. Duffey, and this little girl here is Sophie, who refuses to take a nap. Um, I put this video together to help my students at the Georgia College Counseling Center and their parents understand some of the common misconceptions about students with high functioning autism. Don't take what I say as gospel, because as a psychiatrist, I'm relatively new at working with autistic students. You'll find no treatment suggestions here. I'm just going to share some general information I've learned in my recent readings about high functioning autistic spectrum disorder, or HFA. I would encourage you to discover the wealth of information about autism available on the internet and in books. Uh, I'm going to talk slowly so you have time to think about what I'm saying. The important ideas are scattered throughout and not just at the beginning, so please hang in there with me. Um, Autism is not so much a disorder as a different way of perceiving and experiencing the environment that comes from differences in the brain. About 2/3 of the people that are on the autistic spectrum are high functioning. These people with HFA were previously said to have Asperger's disorder. Then the Asperger's diagnosis was abandoned as a distinct diagnosis in favor of the idea that people fell along a broad spectrum of neuroatypicality. There's also a trend away from using the word disorder because it implies an illness when it's simply a difference in neural wiring that has both advantages and disadvantages. Perhaps the biggest disadvantage is that the person with atypical wiring has to live in a world designed for typically wired people. Now, these typically wired people are called neurotypicals. People say when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, just one. By that, they're emphasizing that autistic traits vary immensely, and it's hard to generalize. For example, some autistic people display a multitude of strengths that may not be present in the neurotypical population. Some HFAs have incredible memory for facts and events. Some are visual thinkers and can see patterns that others can't. Some can see patterns in behaviors, language, math that are not apparent to neurotypicals. Some are more able to detect people who lie because they're observers of details that neurotypicals miss. They're often more loyal and more honest, if not naively blunt. Some HFAs have heightened sense of taste, touch, and smell. Most of the time, HFAs, and some of whom call themselves by the nickname Aspies, are smarter than those around them academically. Their academic achievement may cause others to overlook their difficulties. They tend to excel in the STEM subjects, and you'll find a number of HFAs in engineering and IT. Their pattern recognition abilities make them good diagnosticians, whether it's a car or a sick person or a sick dog that's in question. Their visual memory and penchant for things being a certain way make them excellent librarians, clerks, visual artists, or editors. Many HFAs are very good at working with details and remembering details. That helps them excel at programming and other tasks that others would find tedious. Now, there are some common misconceptions about HFAs. HFAs. While they do enjoy their own company, they do have caring feelings about others. While they may like to be touched, some types of touch feel overstimulating or irritating to them, and they may shy away from being touched when they still care very much about the person in front of them. Their facial expressions and communication issues mislead others around them to think they don't care when they do care. Sometimes their fusiform gyrus and their amygdala don't work as well, and they have problems with recognizing and interpreting the facial expressions of others. Sometimes they don't respond in what others would say would be a socially expected show of sympathy because they may think differently using different logic that misses what is the actual meaning of the situation. Doesn't mean they don't care, though. Another misconception is the belief that autistic people don't need others. They want to have connections, but they find the experience exhausting for several reasons. They may have trouble filtering sensations like light, noise, other conversations. Imagine that they're like a microphone that has the gain pushed way up so that it takes in not only the speaker, but all the background sound at the same time and very loudly. They're distracted by their own thoughts, which press in on them like one Google search leading to another. The pressure to respond to others within a reasonable amount of time can be intimidating. If you ask them a specific question, they may answer you. But if you ask them an open-ended question, their brain may freeze up like a computer that's overloaded. Trying to be appropriate, to read the emotions of those around them, to remember the new data can overload them. Even when they succeed, it's exhausting, and they sometimes may shut down or have a meltdown. It's important for them to have a place to go that is safe, where they can be themselves and settle down and process things. If they can't retreat to their room, they may go to the bathroom or a car for some peace. Sometimes they use earbuds or headphones to play music soothing to them. Sometimes when you say a lot to them and they don't process it fast enough, or they can't process it fast enough, they just don't take it in. That can make them look passive aggressive when they subsequently don't follow up with what was asked of them. You may tell them something and it triggers a string of other thoughts in their head that may be different and creative, but lead them down a rabbit hole away from the topic at hand. So the next time they say something, it seems right off the wall from the conversation that you were having. And you can't see the connections, but they can. Because they need a lot of time alone to process, and because they're more comfortable with stimulation they can control, they look like loners to people who don't understand them. They also may have been bullied in school or by lovers. All of this together gives them the feeling they're aliens on a planet of people different from them who don't get them. They may have very clear preferences for things, and these preferences are logical to them, but may not seem logical to others. Their preferences feel like necessary requirements for them to function within their comfort zone, and they may be stubborn about them. For example, they may want to eat only certain foods, wear only certain clothes, or do things a certain way. They may have things that they simply will not do. Things that may seem easy to you are not easy to them, and vice versa. These very clear preferences and the rigidity they show can frustrate parents, roommates, and partners. They sometimes have disdain for a world of people who don't operate as logically as they do. They feel irritated by it and often wonder why people don't get it. Their preferences make being around others potentially frustrating to them and to the others. Another factor in being alone for them frequently is that they tend to have intense interest in narrow subjects and be experts on these subjects as a consequence of being able to spend hours at a time, day after day, pursuing their interests. So being alone is not only a relief, it's a chance to do something they enjoy in a world that they have control over. Video games come to mind. They're sometimes willing to talk on a subject that interests them for an extended period of time, oblivious to the listener's ability to sustain interest or follow their detail. You can see how their difficulty in going to school or finding a job with a living wage has multiple causes. It doesn't seem worthwhile at times for them to leave their room and have to process so much. Their problems with processing things in the face of difficulty filtering out stimuli means it takes them more time to do things than it would take a neurotypical. So the pace of the outside world is hard to take. Their clear preferences and their rigidity make finding a work situation challenging, and others see them as needlessly difficult, in spite of their gifts. In the work situation itself, they anticipate being bullied, may misread others, and can get overloaded. There are more males with HFA than females, and males tend to be more likely to be recognized. Supposedly, they're more likely to express their frustration by being irritable. Heightened sensation can be a good thing when they enjoy touching jewelry or some fabrics, but be a problem when their heightened sense of touch makes wearing occasion appropriate clothes unbearable. Their sense of taste can make them picky eaters and eaters who do same eating and may go through periods of eating the same set of meals each day. Our society needs the skills and abilities that autistic people offer us, and it's worthwhile to work with them to find their niche. Now, I want to mention some resources that might be helpful to you. You may want to Google the Job Accommodations Network. Also, there's an online Aspergers Syndrome information and support group. It's also called OASIS. And OASIS has joined with MAP services to create a single resource for families, individuals, and medical professionals. You could also read Aspergers and Adulthood, a guide to working, loving, and living with Aspergers Syndrome by Blythe Grossberg, PsyD, who also wrote Asperger's Rules. College students and their parents may want to read Navigating College, a handbook on self-advocacy written for autistic students from autistic adults. Thank you.